We ran with the last of our strength, like those who run for their precious lives, like a doomed person, knowing that there is no hope to save his life, will still fight the inevitable and his own fate. I barely managed to close the heavy metal door behind me. I have no idea how deep this bomb shelter is, or if it's able to withstand a nuclear blast, but we have no other place to hide. She gripped my hand tight. Don't be afraid. Bits of the ceiling were falling and the walls were shaking. I was prepared for the worst. But death is the kind of thing that you can't ever be prepared for. But suddenly the complete silence fell. It rang even louder than the explosions. Maybe it's time to say goodbye. She was whimpering. I wanted to comfort her somehow, but realized that there was nothing I could do. Yes. A horrible bang almost split my eardrums. It seems that I'm under a piece of collapsed ceiling, but I don't feel any pain. All I want is to not let her go. What could it mean? The reason I decided to read that was because I'm just looking for clues left and right, to be honest. I laughed so much during this part. I believe it was for over a minute, if I'm not mistaken. It was because of Lena's reaction. Well, not her reaction, but the expression on her face. She looked so uncomfortable. And I found it to be the most hilarious thing ever. They all look like they're just having a bad time. I imagine you go with Lena. That has to be it. Oh dear. Sometimes I felt like there are two different people living inside of Lena. But the second one, confident, happy, and sometimes even bold, only appears when she talks to me. Oh yeah, and here we go with the mysterious girl that asks him about cake, is it? Or sugar? Something like that. Could you lend me a little? What for? And she's gone. It's gotta be her, right? Who else could it be? Who else is missing? Oh boy, here we go. Try to find out what Elisa and Lena are arguing about. And this is where we lost her. This was so heartbreaking. But I had hope. I thought for sure it was gonna work out. Man, I had no idea what I was in store for. My heart was heavy, and my soul was being torn apart by vague expectations. From time to time, I had a feeling that I was already dead, just without realizing it, and I'd been thrown into hell. We hear this song at another time, don't we? But I can't remember when. But I feel like it's after Lena had committed suicide. And if not, then somewhere pretty close to it. From time to time, I had a feeling that I was already dead and had been thrown to hell. Okay, and here we go. Everybody starts acting so weird. Everyone just doesn't care about Lena. It's so odd. And nobody's heard anything about her? Elisa responds, no. Don't you find it strange? And she says, Ulyana says, what's so strange? Maybe she's reading, sleeping or something? It's none of your business, is it? Elisa interjected angrily. You weren't so worried about when Shirk disappeared. That's quite different. So Elisa is just hella pissed, but everyone else also is unwilling to help poor Semyon. I just wonder what happened to the pioneers. Do you know where Lena is? No, why are you asking? She's nowhere to be found. She missed both breakfast and lunch. And her answer, so what? Like, dude, you're the camp leader. Come on, man. That ain't right. She looked at me blankly. What do you mean, so what? When Shirk was gone, the whole camp was searching for him from the early morning. I don't understand you. There is something strange happening to the camp leader again. Yeah, throughout the series, why do I call it the series? Throughout the story, she gets these moments where it seems like the game is trying to tell us something. Where she just starts acting so weird, so not like herself. She was behaving absolutely incomprehensibly illogically. Do you think it's normal? So where is she now? I don't know. Olga Dmitrievna replied calmly. This is too much. I started to lose my temper. Slavia refuses also to help, and Semyon and I pretty much have the same reaction. It was like a lightning strike. Because even if the pure, kind-hearted Slavia isn't willing to help, you know something is wrong. No, that was not her. It was as if somebody had replaced her. Not only her, but also the other inhabitants of this camp. That's also what I thought. You know, I don't know about you guys, but I felt like I did some of my best reading during this part. I was really happy with how it turned out. Put a lot of emotion to it. I like the way it sounded. Lena here is mentioning the stars, and she says, it seems that they talk to me. There are other people there. They have their own life, probably much better than ours. And they too look at the sky and see the earth, me and you. I read something recently, I don't know if it's true or not, but it made me think of this. It said that when a girl tells you about certain interests of hers, like gazing at the stars, it means she's in love with you. I'm probably phrasing it wrong, but if someone you've been getting close to starts talking about things that you usually associate with romance, like stargazing, they just talk about it out of nowhere with you, it means they're really starting to fall for you. It made me think of this, and it made sense to me because later in a little bit, Semyon basically says that he doesn't get it, that to him stars are just not boring, but he essentially says something like that. And it makes sense to me why it would hurt her feelings, because here she is trying to tell him something deep and personal of her, and maybe trying to hint to him that she's feeling something for him, and she feels rejected. I was so taken aback during this part, and I figured that it would make for the perfect cliffhanger, so I decided to end it there. Here we go with the apartment. Man, just hearing this music and seeing this image gives me chills. What could it mean? A message window flashed on the taskbar. I sat down and stared at the monitor. Somebody wrote to me. What did it say? Wake up. Who knows you're asleep? Are you asleep? Is this just him wishing that things were back to normal? I have no idea what it could mean, but I have my suspicions. I feel like this computer, like I said at the beginning of the Redemption Saga, represents his mind. and for some reason it's trying so hard to wake up. I think something like that. This part freaked me out so much. The fact she puts it so calmly, so simply. No, it's just that they have left. And then the music kicks in. It freaked me out so much because I was not expecting this. You fall into the routine and expect that it's gonna be another crazy day at the camp. But then all of a sudden the game says to you, no, you're at the end. And I was so taken aback. Gave me chills. A little bit nervous right now, I'm not gonna lie. I remember all too well what happened last time. And it's a little odd, a little weird, a little nerve-wracking seeing this room again. I hope I did things right. And now I suppose we're gonna find out. Everything that happened between us literally only a couple of hours ago flashed before my eyes and I felt shivers up my spine. Nah, I don't know if it's right or wrong, but if I could have returned back in time, I would have done exactly the same thing. Is that new? That has to be new. I don't remember him saying that. If all this changes, does that mean I have to do a proper read-through? Ow, my neck hurts. Okay, here goes. I smiled widely and sat down next to her on the bed. I had absolutely no desire to wake Lena up. It was an unspeakable pleasure just watching how she sleeps. People say that the sleep reveals the true face of a person. I heard a legend that some ancient civilization had a custom. Before getting married, a woman watches her fiancé sleeping for 3 nights. And then she decided whether to marry him or not. Bearing that in mind, I could confidently say that Lena's face showed nothing but goodness, kindness, and childlike naivety. Could this really be the girl that knocked Elisa out yesterday? Well, whatever it may be, everything's already happened. And I've already seen Lena like that. The humility for the first few days, the hysterics back there on the island, the rage at the square yesterday, her passion today. How can one single human cope with so many opposing personality traits? Might it be the case that she really has a double, triple, even quadruple split personality? I don't know how much time I spent just watching Lena sleeping. It might have been a couple of minutes. It might have been a couple of hours. Finally, she awakened. Morning. Lena smiled tenderly. Come here. She rose and hugged me. I didn't resist and plopped down on the bed. You're so wonderful, she whispered in my ear, kissing my neck. You too. But my voice hesitated. It's a little personal, she asked playfully. Hold on. I moved her away gently. You know, all this is anything but simple. When we just met, you seemed to be one person, then you seemed to be another one, and today, now I can't understand at all who you really are. And yet again, what you did to Elisa. Her again? Lena covered up with a blanket and turned away. Did you like what we did? Want to do it with her too? No, I won't hold you back. Come on, compare us. I'll leave you her address. You can tell me who is better, or we can have a threesome. She sounded like she wasn't talking about me or her. Like she was talking about complete strangers. Oh, there you go again. I sighed. Throughout today, you should have realized that the last person I would think about now would be Elisa. Okay, you're right. She turned to me, smiled, and hugged me tightly. Hold on. I still have to understand. Why? I can't just simply... And yes, I do care. That's why I really need to know who you really are. I am just me, she answered in the same languid voice. My brakes started to break from all these emotions. I have to calm down somehow. I jumped to my feet and moved across to sit on the opposite bed. Fine. Lena sat disappointedly and started to get dressed. I'm not asking for much. Just a few answers to a few questions. Later, it's time to depart. She interrupted me impassively. What? Where are we going? You mean where? Back to town, of course. But you told me... Well, I might have withheld something. In fact, I persuaded Olga Dmitrievna that we still had some extremely urgent matters here and will come later. How would we get back to town then? A bus, of course. There are no buses here. I grinned. What do you mean no buses? Of course they are. Route 410. I didn't know whether I should believe it or not. The situation seemed to be going out of control, but I wouldn't argue. Okay? I managed cautiously. Come on, get packed. Meet me at the square in 10 minutes. Okay. I gave up asking and left the cabin. Last time I left her alone, in this cabin, my heart shattered. Whoa! This looks HD now. Frankly speaking, I had almost nothing to pack. I just tossed my winter clothing into a bag and headed to the square. Please be there. Oh my gosh, yes. I'm so happy, so happy. Lena was already waiting for me there with a gym bag on her shoulder. You don't seem to carry a lot of baggage. It's just enough. She smiled. Let me carry it. Please do. Although her bag seemed almost weightless, a bit of chivalry never hurt anyone. We were walking, and Lena was constantly telling jokes, anecdotes, funny stories, and never stopped laughing. Now I'd really lost touch with the person next to me. Is she the one I met a week ago, or the one I saw for the first time this morning? When we reached the bus stop, I took out my mobile phone and checked the time. Surprisingly, there was still some power left. It was almost 11 p.m. Isn't it a bit late for buses? Yeah, I think the ones near me stop at 7 p.m. Oh, what is that? Asked Lena curiously. Oh, just a toy. Take it, it's a gift. You're gonna mess up the timeline. Thank you. She smiled and took the phone. What can you play on it? Ringtones. You'll work it out yourself later. It's not that hard. Anyway, a mobile phone is totally useless here. We waited for about half an hour and Lena just kept talking and talking. Well, I must admit that I found her stories amusing and I felt comfortable with her. But what about the bus? So, what about... I didn't finish the sentence as I saw the glimmer of headlights in the distance. "Ah, here it is," Lena exclaimed, Not much has changed, huh? With a lot of enthusiasm. Let's put it that way, okay? The bus was slowly carrying us away from the Sovyonok pioneer camp. I just wanted to believe that we'd never ever go back. The darkness beyond the window prevented us from seeing the road, the woods or the fields. Actually, it might be the case that they're all long gone and we're flying through a void towards the unknown. Maybe you are. Anyway, I couldn't care less for the surroundings. I just kept listening to Lena. Perhaps she had said more words today than she had throughout her past life. You know, I interrupted her at last. I still don't understand. What exactly? She smiled. How come you could be so hesitant, so humble at first, unable to string two words together and like this? Is it that important? Yes, for me it is. Well? She took a deep breath before answering. Oh my gosh, here we go. You see, I've always been the way you saw me the first time we met. I was like that in public. I wasn't able to live as I wanted to since childhood. So I put on a mask. She went silent. Although, let's not get too deep into that. Lena laughed and cuddled my arm, pressing her body tightly against me. Okay, I get it. It was probably very hard for her to discuss it indeed. Anyway, I got a lot even from such a short explanation. But still, can I be sure you won't turn into that one again? You won't retreat into your shell, won't surrender to your anger and rage? That depends on you. Lena smiled slyly. It was just now that I realized that I'm playing a high-stakes game. On the one hand, I've spent a week in this obscure world just trying to find some answers. I have nothing to my name. I know what to return to, damn it. On the other hand, there's this girl who obviously matters so much to me. I almost didn't need to think about whether I had any feelings for Lena. I just wanted to be by her side, look at her, listen to her voice. I liked her the way she was. I assured myself that this is it. The real Lena is in front of me. And now, when these thoughts came back about my past life and mysterious appearance in an 80s pioneer camp, it's just not the time for such thoughts. I feel good right now being close to her. I don't want to return anywhere. I don't want any answers. I don't want to think about what's going to happen tomorrow. If it's up to me, then I just want to believe that you'll always be the way you are now. For this is the way I love you. And I'll keep being this way as long as we're together. She hugged me even tighter. I don't know how long we'd been on the road, but Lena's chatter gradually started to quiet down. She put her head on my shoulder but was still telling me a story about her cat getting into the sleeping medicine, getting dizzy and wreaking havoc. I slowly started to doze off myself. But still, why did you hit Elisa? She looked at me closely with a serious expression on her face. You know, I suppose I can't blame you. I wouldn't word it the same way as you, but I suppose I feel the same. Lena laughed loudly and nestled into my shoulder. I desperately tried not to fall asleep. It's unknown what's awaiting there after the bus's next turn. It might be a new life waiting for me, or it might be the end of this fairy tale. I'll be buried in the coffin of the peeling walls and ceiling of my old apartment. But it was a losing battle. Morpheus had summoned legions of monsters under the command of fatigue, exhaustion, desolation, and uncertainty. I had no chance to win the battle against these 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, and I drifted off to sleep. Wake up. Consciousness slowly returned to me. It's like I'm falling from a cliff so high that clouds are drifting nearby. The ground is coming closer, but I'm not afraid that I'll die. My fall slows down, and my body is smoothly immersed into the warm ether. I open my eyes. You sleep through your whole life like that. Lena looked at me seriously. What? We're there already? Where's there? I looked around. A bench, the square. Genda? But how? I was on the bus going to the district center. Why are you looking at me as if you've seen a ghost? But wait, why am I still here? For a second I felt terrible fear. Will I never get out of this place? We were on the bus together. On the bus? Yesterday. Yesterday? Yes, yesterday, don't you remember? Lena started thinking. Yesterday? I don't remember anything like that. Maybe you just had a bad dream. Considering that all that has happened already seems like a hallucination, this must be a dream within a dream then. Whoa. Well, let's take it slowly. I tried to think logically. The session ended yesterday, all the pioneers left, but we stayed. And then we took a bus and headed to the district center. Lena surely looked perplexed. Are you kidding me? I'm not kidding anyone. Today is the last day. Wait. So, how much time have I spent here? Lena started to count off on her fingers. Looks like 7 days. Not 8? It's 7. Definitely 7. I gave an exhausted sigh and covered my face with my hands. Well, that's another riddle in the long list of this camp's mysteries. Well, okay. Though, I have a feeling that we won't manage to leave today either. Time loop? Is he in a time loop? Oh my gosh, was I right about that? Why? 6th sense. You're acting a bit strange today. I suppose I have my reasons. You want to tell me? I gazed at her attentively. I do. Sure, why not? When I had a real chance to break free from this camp, everything failed. So what do I have to lose now? And where do I start? Start from the beginning. Yes, of course. Well, I was born, I studied, married. Well, okay, I haven't gotten married yet. Still have time. Yes, but Well, in a few words, like, I'm not from this world. From the look she gave me, it was clear she didn't understand me at all. I came here accidentally. Even I don't know how. So what does your world look like? Lena asked me seriously. It's virtually the same, but 20 years ahead of your world. Do you already have spaceflight? Well, if it comes to that, you have it as well. However, we haven't made any great achievements in that field yet. Sounds interesting. I was unable to tell if Lena was taking me seriously or was just pretending to do so. I used to live in a completely different place as well, far away from the north, judging from the landscape, in a big city. I've never been to the big cities. Maybe that's for the best. Will you show me your house? It seemed like she was taking this conversation as seriously as I was. Well, I'm not even sure it exists in this world. Well, come on. Lena pouted. Well, sure, I will. So how did you get here? One evening I took a bus, Route 410, and woke up here. I don't know anything more than that. 410 route? That's the one that stops just outside the camp. Yes, but my 410 travels in another place and time. Are you planning to return? Lena said, and I noticed that note of unhappiness in her voice. I have no idea how to. And if you knew? You're asking tough questions. What's wrong? Nothing, but you see, I only just recently started to adjust to being here. The first hours in this camp were such a shock for me that I don't know. It's okay. Still have time to think about it. Time to think? It seems that even if Lena believed me, she considers this whole situation just a typical inconvenience and nothing more. Anyway, it's not up to me. Possibly even if I do want to stay. You see, the one who brought me here can take me back as well. I believe that any event in a person's life has a reason. Therefore, you are here for some reason. Maybe. If you haven't returned, you must be needed here. Well, I can't rule out that interpretation. Hey, time to pack your stuff. The camp leader's voice sounded from afar. Hear that? I don't have much to pack. But I do. So meet you near the bus. Would you like me to help? Thanks, but there's no need. Lena smiled and ran off towards her cabin. I remained sitting on the bench, trying to cope with the shock. My thoughts were still in chaos, one theory replacing another. On one hand, me being unable to get out of this camp isn't all that odd compared to me finding myself here in the first place, but what now? What am I supposed to do? Is there any chance that I can leave camp if I try again? Anyway, what's the point of being nervous? By now I know perfectly well that absolutely nothing is up to me. Maybe I just have to sit back and enjoy the ride? I couldn't help smiling, especially now when I have an additional reason not to be in any hurry to leave. And that reason is Lena. Maybe she's right and I'm here for some reason. In the end, even if I can narrow down the possible explanations for my situation to a reasonable minimum, there would still be 1,001. And if I keep exhausting myself analyzing them, I'll just go mad. Maybe it's time to make a choice? maybe this world is not so bad after all. Especially since for the first time in a long time I have something to live for. It's still a vague something, but still I have it. It exists. And now I have the power not to simply hold it, but to develop it into something bigger. With such thoughts, I stood up and started walking to Olga Dmitrievna's cabin in order to pack my humble belongings and leave the Sovyonok pioneer camp forever. One may think it's strange, and that's exactly how it seemed to me. But eventually we reached the district center. I eventually got tired in the bus and fell asleep. When I woke up, I ran up and down the aisle of the bus, gasping for air, but soon I realized that this long week is over. At last I managed to break free from the camp. All the time I spent there seemed like so much longer than 7 days, and now everything is over. What the heck? Soon after that, events moved with frightening speed. No time left for self-analysis or seeking answers. Moreover, from time to time, I completely forgot about the camp. Like anyone who found themselves in a completely strange environment, I was completely lost. I had no papers, not even a simple birth certificate, and no skills to earn a living. Professions such as computer specialist or call center operator were not in demand. Lena returned to her normal life. She had to graduate from school and get ready to enter university. The pioneer camp was in the south of the USSR, just that I assumed. Lena lived in a town with a population of about 100,000. It was easier to get there by bus from the district center. There was nothing special about the town. One big factory, rows of 5-story houses, wooden huts on the outskirts, a grocery store that closed at 7 p.m., and a supermarket, a true Eden for a shopaholic, with choices including rubber winter shoes, women's sheepskin coats, and men's musquash hats. Before I would already be trying to run away from a place like this, but now it was my home. Cases of starvation were rare in 20th century Europe. I managed to find a job. I was employed as a turner's assistant in a factory and was also given a room in a hostel. Over time, this initially difficult and strange job started to bring a certain satisfaction. Partially, of course, that came from having the ability to buy food. Time passed and I climbed up a career ladder, becoming the head of a whole shift. My colleagues were amazed at my talent and persistence, and so was I. Lena graduated from school and I spent several nights with a calculator, designing diagrams of expenses and income, and at last made up my mind to propose to Lena. I don't remember now if it took a lot of time for her to think, if she suggested we sign a marriage contract or if she protested because of the lack of a dowry. But in a short time, both of us moved in a communal apartment room near the factory that cost 2/3 of my salary. Thanks to free Soviet education for everyone, or maybe thanks to my wife's persistence, eventually I became a part-time student at the local Polytechnic University. At first I protested, saying that a fair proletarian had no need to act like the lousy intellectuals. But then I came to a conclusion that a diploma would make my life easier. It wasn't difficult to study thanks to my knowledge from my last attempt at receiving a higher education. Time passed and the country started to change. Of course I knew what happened, but still, the changes came out of the blue. You could compare it to being caught in an avalanche in the mountains. You can prepare all you like, but it will still bury you anyway. The factory was privatized and then closed down. Moonlighting as a private driver in the Kopeyka rattle trap I inherited from my father-in-law was not really a profitable business. I was even ready to apply for a camp leader position in Sovyonok when Lena's distant relative died and left us a one-room apartment somewhere in central Russia. After a family council, we decided to move. We greeted the early 90s in a cramped kitchen in Krushkova, watching Swan Lake. Thanks to random side jobs, I saved up money and we decided to move to a bigger city, and of course, I chose my birthplace. We decided to sell the flat and use the money to invest in business. For some time we lived in luxury, buying mink fur coats and expensive foreign cars, dining in restaurants and taking trips to other countries. Like many others during that time, I had the luck to somehow make it big, starting from the bottom. My business was construction material retail. It was a profitable market at the time because people made excessive money that they wanted to invest in luxurious homes. Maybe such life could have gone on, but the 90s were called rakish for a reason. After encountering rackets and corruption, I was left with an empty refrigerator, an empty wallet, and the bitter taste of blood in my mouth. There was that time I tried to recall my man from the future status. Betting places that were impossible in the Soviet era popped up all over, and I rushed to gamble on everything I knew. However, I faced new disappointments as matches were won by completely different teams. Even the '94 World Cup champions weren't Brazil. When I was just watching football on TV, everything went as it should. But whenever I spent the last of my money to make a bet, even underdogs began phenomenally beating favorites. As well as that, I tried to pursue the career of a political advisor. However, you don't get accepted into a high position like that without special connections or anything that would make people interested. I don't know how long I would have gone through this torment if not for an event which changed everything. Me and Lena had a child. In a hurry, I started to search for any possible way to earn enough to provide for my family. I remembered some of my father's old friends, and through them, by pretending to be a distant relative of myself, I gained a place as a junior data analyst in a bank. At the same time, I made a new attempt to obtain my degree. Time passed slowly. The money was just enough to fill our stomachs. I almost lived at work for days trying to find some time for my exams. Lena stayed at home with the baby. That was when I started writing. I remember as if it was yesterday. It was just after midnight and I was sitting in the kitchen in front of my old worn out 1386 wildly killing monsters in Doom 3. I wanted to sleep badly, but computer games at least slightly distracted me from the infinity of dull days. When I completed another level, I was suddenly immersed in thoughts about everything I'd gone through during the last few years. It was all too much for one person. That's when I decided to write down everything that had happened to me. I launched a word processor and wrote down about 200 words with the clear intent of continuing it tomorrow. However, I didn't remember it tomorrow, nor even a week later. About a month later, Lena, who was typing something on the computer, reminded me of my unfinished book. I reread it and deleted it, terrified. At that moment, I started to doubt if I could ever do it. After all, it was an entire epic novel and I wasn't able to string 2 sentences together. In addition, it's not easy to write about yourself. Creative work put on the back burner for now. I celebrated the arrival of the year 2000 as a certified specialist with department head duties. While moving to another apartment, I found my old i386 among the trash that was to be thrown away, and I remembered my intention of writing a book about my life. I laughed. How stupid. However, after some time, I opened my laptop and made a sort of draft of a short story about a young man without a definitive occupation or aspirations who finds himself on a different planet. The style, orthography, and punctuation, as well as the idea itself, were matched well to such a silly plot. I showed the story to my wife. She laughed but said that it was well written and advised me to continue. About a year later, the drawer designated for holding my literary works was full. I found it very odd because I was spending entire days at work, sometimes even during holidays, and I tried to spend all my available free time with my family. However, that's what happened. Around that time, I decided to publish my short stories. As with any other beginner's work, most of mine were rejected, but a couple of them were accepted, including my first work. I was over the moon. Of course, I was paid nothing, but my works will be real, meaning that someone will find them interesting. Time passed. We had a second baby now. During my spare time, I slowly wrote a novel. No, not about my life of the pioneer camp. I decided not to touch upon those themes ever again. Everything that happened years ago seemed to be the will of God, whose charity should not be tempted. Who can tell what would have happened if I hadn't woken up in a bus near the Sovyonok camp gates? A year later, the novel was completed. After I annoyed almost all known publishers, I managed to reach an agreement with a small company. The editor, an elderly man wearing a ragged tweed jacket and thick spectacles which almost rubbed against his magnificent grey mustache, told me, "Your level is average, young man. Average, yes. But the idea itself is interesting. Interesting, yes. Well, you need more practice and more reading, yes." I remember these words for the rest of my life. I dispensed the copies that were sent to me as a part of my royalty agreement among my friends and colleagues. Lena, who read my novel only after it was published, told me that she really liked it, mostly out of a desire to not upset me, I guess. Time passed. The calendar days were unstoppably approaching that day when I was pulled out of my usual world and thrown into this life, starting from the mysterious pioneer camp and now ending up here. Now I am a successful writer. I have a wonderful wife and 2 children. My life has turned 180 degrees. Midnight tonight is the start of something new. Tomorrow is the day that I was awaiting for so many years. Well, that's gonna be fun to edit. What are you thinking about? Whoa! You have eyes! You have eyes! Good for you! See? And all you needed was to be thrown back in time. Look at Lena! That's beautiful. I opened my eyes and saw Lena. She put a cup of tea on the table near an armchair. Firewood was gently crackling in fireplace and a snowstorm was roaring outside. I wrapped myself up in a plaid blanket and looked at Lena. Do you know what day it is? No, what day? Do you remember what I told you back there in the camp? No. No wonder. During all these years I'd never brought up the topic of my mysterious arrival in this world. Do you remember how I told you that I am not from this world? Lena paused. Oh, something like that, yes. So today is the day when many years ago I got on the 410 bus and woke up at that pioneer camp. So, it's an anniversary? Lena smiled. Yes, sort of. Is it a sad celebration for you? No, not at all. I remember almost nothing about that time. Maybe that's for the best. I added some firewood to the fire and took the mug from the table. Maybe I'll write a novel. You will read it and remember. You think that's a good idea? Lena's expression became serious. Indeed, I once promised myself that I would never write about it. Maybe it's not. After all, everything that happened is just for us. It's exactly what I think. I sighed and looked at the fire. You know, life is like a candle. Someone's got a short one, someone's got a long one, and it can burn out at any moment. And our life is like this fireplace. Yes, perhaps. I looked at her and smiled. I'll sleep for a while longer. Lena kissed me and fixed her gaze on the fire in a dreamy manner. My eyes closed, and my whole reality compressed itself down to the crackling of the firewood. I started falling slowly, somewhere far away. No, it was not a dream, more like warm ether, gently enveloping my entire existence.